Welcome to the Sexy Freedom Media Podcast, a place to discuss pain, passion, and pursuits.
Let's get it. I want to feel alive.
Breathe.
Make some moves.
Protect the throne. This is Sexy Freedom Media Podcast.
Welcome to the Sexy Freedom Media Podcast. It's your host, Helen Edwards and
January Liddell. Aloha.
So today we're actually going to talk about the benefits of reading and listening to anything that has to do with personal development. And I thought this would be a really great episode for us to do because I feel like there's this kind of weirdness that people get when they're like, oh, I love listening to personal development. Like, it's almost like people are scared to say, I like or I love self-help. And there's kind of this negative weirdness with it. I don't know. It's been like my whole life and people get kind of embarrassed about it. But now it's like self-improvement and self-development is so amazing and it's so helpful in so many ways. And I just want to talk about how awesome it is.
So I believe in personal development, and reading is one of those things that it's a must. I remember when I first started my personal development journey, it was because I became an entrepreneur. And in the entrepreneur world, the whole idea of personal development is vital. So one of the first books that I read was Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence Others by Dale Carnegie. The other one was by Napoleon Hill, and some other personal development books, a lot, actually, a ton of books. And I realized that if it weren't for those books, I wouldn't be where I am today. And so there are so many benefits to reading. A lot. I can't even explain all of it. In fact, we are going to talk about it here. That's why we're having this topic. So we're going to talk about the different benefits. And so far for me, one of the benefits for me is that I feel like it increases my brain activity. So it is it's a mental boost for my brain. I feel like and I know there's science backed on this, Helen, and so you probably have that information, but definitely number one, I feel like my brain cells are igniting when I read.
Absolutely. That was one of my first books that I ever read too, which is the one you mentioned, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which is absolutely exceptional. Let's jump into the 4 key benefits that I'd like to go over actually, because I think they're going to really help our audience just love what we're talking about if they don't already love self-development or self-improvement. The 4 science-backed benefits of reading or listening to personal development or self-improvement books or podcasts. Number 1, enhanced emotional intelligence. So with this, research shows that reading self-help books, especially those focused on emotional growth, can help individuals improve emotional intelligence. By exploring different perspectives on emotions, behavior, and interpersonal relationships, readers become more aware of their emotions and the emotions of others, leading to better regulation or better self-regulation and communication skills. So let's talk about that one first.
Okay, it definitely has helped me in terms of my communication with my husband. Still a work in progress, by the way, but it's definitely changed the way that I approach him or other people. So, and like all things, right? It's still practice makes perfect, right? And so for me, that interpersonal skill when reading a book, in fact, there was one that I just saw today and it's called Lazy Love. And I actually would love to read that book because it's supposed to help with relationships. There's another book that I'm reading called Crucial Conversations. And that's amazing because Crucial Conversations is going to teach me how to, number one, speak in such a way that I'm mindful with my words, so I pause and speak. Number two, when emotions are heightened, especially in relationships and marriages, then this particular book is going to help me determine or practice how to speak to that person. And then there was a third one. I'm still in the midst of learning, but it's Crucial Conversations. Great book to read. Thank you, Jeffrey Bao, actually, for introducing me to that book. So, yeah, so in terms of emotional intelligence, I believe definitely reading books has increased my emotional intelligence and is further increasing it. And so I enjoy reading. I just wish there was more time in the day.
I know, I wish there was too, because I listen to podcasts first thing in the morning, or I listen to an audiobook that I'm, you know, in quotes reading, air quotes reading. And I do that while I clean up, do laundry, do my stretches, do the dishes, make my coffee, because I feel like it's so important to not just feed your body first thing in the morning, but also feed your mind. And the emotional intelligence that I feel I've gained over the last 20 years just by being on the fully focused, like fully committed self development phase of my life and continuing to do has helped my emotional intelligence, because I remember I used to be very defensive, very reactive, very negative. Those three things were basically adding so much negativity and a lot of self-criticism and self-destruction in my life that I didn't even realize it until I started reading consistently personal development books that were like, oh my gosh, that's why I'm like this. This is why I'm doing this. And then I started becoming aware of the whys and the how to change it. And then I started practicing the how to change it. So personal development definitely increases emotional intelligence by far. And that's why I love surrounding myself with people who also love personal development, because I know if maybe I say something wrong, they're not going to be so reactive. Instead, they're going to say, "Hey, that kind of didn't feel good. This is the way I took it." Like they're very communicative, which is, encompasses the first benefit that we talked about, emotional intelligence and communication skills. And when somebody I shouldn't say hasn't read personal development, but isn't consistent with feeding their mind, because you can tell by the way they react. You can tell by the way they're negative. You can tell just the way by how they handle things if they're feeding their mind, body, and soul, right?
I love that we are talking about this and destigmatizing the idea of personal development through books because books are so vital. So, the other thing that I love about books is that it increases our vocabulary. So, that's another thing that I love is that it does increase my vocabulary. There are certain words when I don't understand what it means, I'm like, ooh, this is fun. So, for me, it's fun that I get to learn different words, like malfeasance. It's a fun word to say. In any case, that's another benefit for me is that it increases my vocabulary.
Definitely, definitely, definitely valid and vital. Okay, so let's jump into benefit number two, which is awesome. It is reduced stress and anxiety. Studies have found that reading in general, particularly material focused on self growth, can lower stress levels and improve mental well being. Many self improvement books offer mindfulness techniques, cognitive restructuring methods, and relaxation practices, which are proven to reduce anxiety and increase mental resilience. Oof, that's spicy.
I feel that it's worked for me. Every time I do get into a funk, reading certain books has helped me, and it's a comfort zone for me, I guess. It's like my security blanket. So if I am feeling a little down and out, then I like to read these self-development books because I feel like I'm on track, because I do have imposter syndrome at times. It's something that I am struggling with, or I struggle with. Not every day, but every now and then I'll have something, whispering in my ear. And so to read these books and sometimes I will reread certain books. It really does help to affirm who I am and what I can do, and it does change my mood after reading the book. So, absolutely, I agree.
Yes, I love that. I love the key word in there, which is resilience, also, not just reducing the stress, but also building that muscle. Like, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to calm down, and I'm going to gather my thoughts, and then I'm going to move forward despite whatever I'm faced with. And I love that books have that way of bringing us to a grounded moment, to a moment where we can stop, pause, breathe, and reflect. So yeah, books and podcasts, what, going back to what we just talked about, how when you're reactive or defensive or high stressed, there's so many self-help, personal development encompasses so many types of genres, meditation books, books on how to handle stress, books you were just talking about the books earlier that help you communicate better with your husband and also with other entrepreneurs or other business people or people in that we work with in general, right? I think that all of that will help reduce the stress because what is stress? Stress is our emotions. It's all linked to whatever's going on inside of us invisibly that we can't see. And we're questioning, like, what's happening to me? Like, why am I being like this? Books have many of those answers because many books are written by doctors and psychologists and like Dr. Gretchen, who we have on, Dr. Gretchen Guevara, who we have on repeatedly, who helps with us understanding what is going on and giving us tools to help us figure things out. So many books out there are written by people who have spent their life or decades studying on how to reduce stress, how to move forward, how to be more resilient. So I think that it really saves a lot of trips to the doctors. Not saying that you don't need to go to the doctors. I definitely recommend therapy. I definitely recommend going to the doctors. But when you don't have access to that and you need something to help you like instantly, podcasts. And if you have a book nearby or a book when you travel, boom, right then and there, open it up. And you're right. It's got this sense of like, calming, getting out of your head and allowing other words of wisdom to come in and soothe you.
And I should add too, I wanted to add that there are people out there who enjoy sci-fi books or romance books, fantasy books, and there's so many genres. And those books are another way to relieve stress because it's a form of escape for the moment, you know. I know for me, I don't read those kinds of books. I like self-help, I like personal development. So those are the books that I tend to lean more towards, and Christian books. So those are the books that I lean towards. But I do understand the notion of wanting to be out of our environment or our space just for the moment and being in a good book. I think one of my favorite romance books was Notebook. I actually enjoyed The Notebook, and that was actually given to me by my husband. So my husband read it first and then he gave it to me, and inside of the book he actually wrote notes in it, to write, just to say like what he was thinking at the time when he read it. And so anyway, that was probably my favorite romance book, but I haven't read a romance book in quite some time. But in any case, reading books does give you that sense of calmness, that sense of escapism and that does relieve stress, right? Because it gives you a break in your mundane life, in the things that you're doing. So if you are stressed out there, find a book that calls to you. So my books are personal development, Christian books that calls to me. And when I am feeling stressed out or feeling like I have a big question mark, then I do lean more towards my books and start reading even just a little bit, and it helps me.
Well, that's interesting. You should bring up the other types of genres, right? So, personal development and self help, self growth, self improvement, all of these things that actually help us grow, they are found in a multiple amount of different types of and styles of books and writing. History books. A lot of people love history and they find their self-growth in those books. Fantasy, you know, the ones you just named, memoirs, just all these different genres. I feel like my brain's getting stuck right now because my brain's already like walking into Barnes and Nobles in my mind. Children's books. There's many different books and styles of writing that people find their place of escape and then they get some type of wisdom out of it. So self-improvement, self-growth will find you if you're seeking it. And sometimes when you're not even seeking it, you'll read something and go, oh my God, I needed that. That relates to my life. And it can be a completely nonfiction book, a completely fake story, or a story inspired by a real story. And you're just like, I needed to hear this today. But the thing is, it's powerful because it's giving you something and it's adding value to your life and helping you grow, whether it's intellectually or in your job or working with people or just in your own self-development. It's very powerful when you do recognize getting those little nuggets, those golden nuggets.
What's our third benefit?
Okay, so our third benefit here is improved goal setting and motivation. Self-improvement books often promote goal setting and offer step-by-step techniques for creating and achieving objectives. Research in psychology supports that people who set specific, attainable goals are more likely to achieve them. And reading about effective goal setting can boost motivation and personal productivity.
So James Clear wrote Atomic Habits, and I know you read it too, Helen. And I love Atomic Habits because it talks about habits and how we can create those habits to be successful. And so that in and of itself was a way for me to learn about goal setting. And so if you haven't read Atomic Habits, I wish I read that when I was younger, but better late than never. So read it now. So go get Atomic Habits. Another one that I really like is Superfans, because you mentioned that these are all about goal setting. Superfans is by Pat Flynn, and Pat Flynn wrote that book. He's phenomenal, actually. So he wrote that book because he realized that there's a formula. There's a formula to have superfans. So those of us who are entrepreneurs, who have a business, the way to have superfans is written in that book. So you should go read it. Superfans by Pat Flynn. I love it. It talks about how lyrics, you know how like those who like New Kids on the Block or Backstreet Boys, any if you have a favorite musical artist, you know the lyrics to their songs because you are a super fan. And despite that it's been decades since New Kids on the Block and Sing have been popular, in any case, those of us in our 40s, 50s know them and we still know the lyrics even until now. So that's one of the formulas in super fans is knowing the lyrics. In any case, yes, these books are amazing in terms of goal setting and projecting and figuring out what our purpose is. So highly recommend reading if you're feeling like you're lost or you're feeling like you don't know where you are in life at the moment.
Oh, yeah. I often deal with my own self-criticism or self-doubts or even lack of motivation. And sometimes my emotions are just off and I need that extra boost, like something in my ear so I can get out of my own head. And I love the books that you dropped. They're awesome. The ones I recommend recently that I've read is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma, and the one I'm about to finish today is Everything is Figure Outable by Marie Forleo. I've realized I'll take maybe a few weeks off from reading a book, and I've noticed my how effective I am with my action plans towards my goals every day. I am more effective when I'm reading something daily that wakes me up, gets my brain going, gets me in that mindset of I'm a winner. I can do this. I can figure this out. I've got goals and dreams. Like, let's go. I am more empowered when I'm reading something daily. Same thing with podcast, listening to Mel Robbins podcast or Boss Babes or Sexy Freedom Media podcast. I am, like I did that. I am so inspired and I feel empowered. And it may even last, like, some people say, oh, motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does eggs and bacon in the morning, so you've got to continue feeding yourself throughout your day. And it's not that you don't need a break. I was just telling Charisse, who did my eyebrows, that I read and I listen to podcasts and I try to do it throughout the day. And when I do want to shut off, when I'm saying, okay, I need a break, I go and I watch, sci-fi movies or true crime or comedy. I watch all of these other genres that will just kind of get me away from everything, give me a break. But there's nothing wrong with saying to yourself, I love feeding myself. I love feeding my mind. I love seeing how my brain is developing, because what you put inside it's going to manifest in reality, right?
I like how you said that motivation. You were talking about motivation and how it doesn't last. It really doesn't last. Motivation does not last. What lasts is that if, like what Helen was saying, is that if you continue to feed your brain and you continue to be around things or people that inspire you, books that inspire you, and that is what's going to increase your motivation. It's like a battery, right? Our battery can get low, and that's okay. That's just how life is. And I also like the fact that you said, sometimes I don't read books, consistently throughout the whole entire day. We're not asking you to do that. I do like the fact that you said, I step back and I do something else that ignites my creativity or ignites whatever is calling to me at the moment. I as well do not read books like I want to read, right? I also listen to books. I find that when I listen to books, I like to take notes because it'll go in one ear and I don't retain it as well. And so I wish I could like wash dishes. And I did before where I was washing dishes and folding laundry and cleaning up. But I realized that I wasn't retaining it as often, as much as I should. I think my brain just doesn't function well that way. So I actually have to sit down and listen and take notes. And so that's what I do when I read, on the Audible. I like to take notes because I find that, okay, so this is also what I do when I read books, is that I write on my books. And I learned this at Berkeley. At Berkeley, they were saying, when you are looking at all these articles, write things down, write your expressions, write questions, whatever you want down on the side of the book. So ever since then, I've just always been writing my books, and I feel like I'm engaging with it. In any case, I think I went off on a tangent, but I just love books. We're not asking you to read it like consecutively all the time. Just that this is food for your brain, food for our hearts and our souls, and that reading is vital, and there's so many benefits to reading.
Yes. Okay, number 4, increased self-efficacy and confidence. Reading self-improvement literature can enhance one's belief in their abilities, known as self-efficacy. Studies have shown that people who regularly engage with material that focuses on skill building, mindset shifts, and personal development are more likely to take actions towards self-improvement, thus increasing confidence and overall life satisfaction. Ooh, I love that.
I had to Google self-efficacy. So let me share what self-efficacy is. Self-efficacy is a psychological concept that refers to a person's belief in their ability to complete a task or achieve a goal. It encompasses confidence in controlling behavior, exerting influence over the environment, and staying motivated in pursuit of goals.
For me, it has increased my confidence. And you were talking about earlier dealing with imposter syndrome. Again, going back to when I'm feeding my mind daily, running this podcast, writing a book, being an author of Nothing Sexier Than Freedom. I still deal 7 years later with imposter syndrome. But because of my consistency with feeding my mind personal development, I've stepped into my power more. I've stepped into my profession more. It gives me the confidence and the encouragement to go out and market ourselves. You know, when you're a podcaster, especially they say, oh, everybody's got a podcast now. You're kind of dealing with that doubt, like, oh, are we just another podcast? No. Is a penny just another penny? No, it's money. It's money in your pocket. And that's what your profession is. So I think about that all the time. Like, okay, feed your mind. And as soon as I get done reading something, I'm like, oh, I am so powerful. Like, I got this. And I like to say, when that feeling comes, when that rush comes, that is when you need to act. Because if you just sit on it, it's going to pass you by. Just like what we were talking about. Motivation doesn't last, neither does eggs and bacon. Like, you've got to take action in those moments, in that moment of feeling that high. Because if you ride that high, there's so much power behind that energy. And that definitely gives me the confidence to market this podcast, market my book, go into our Sexy, Successful, and Soul Fed group and share what I know, share my knowledge, and encourage other women to get out there and share theirs. Like, all of that takes confidence. And it's not just like I'm, born with it, or I woke up with confidence. No, sometimes I wake up in a funk. Sometimes I'm self-doubting myself, and I say to myself, okay, read something or listen to something like a good podcast that's going to make you feel and get back to yourself, because it's not me. These are all lies in my head. There's self-doubt that was put there throughout my life that I don't even know how they got there, but they're there. And so I'm telling myself, your true self is amazing. Your true self is exceptional. Your true self is so beautifully sound, grounded, but also full of life and growing. Like, your spirit is so big. And these books and everything I read is confirming that and validating my higher voice, the true self. And that's what I get from that. What about you, January?
Well, as a financial strategist, prior to that, I was a health coach. So for over a decade, being a health coach was it. And so I fed myself with all these health coaching books, nutrition, everything. And that was what I was reading. And once I shifted to the finance industry, then there was that identity crisis that I had. And so reading Doug Andrews, The Laser Fund, David McKnight, The Power of Zero, and anything written by them really helps me to not feel that imposter syndrome, because it continuously drives me to why I'm passionate about why I do what I do. And so as a financial strategist, for me, and the other thing that I do is I read the finance news. And so not just books, but reading magazines about finances is important for me, because then that helps me build my character and my position and posture in the finance industry. Because without those books, without the magazine articles, and if I just kind of went along just doing whatever, then I would still not feel like a financial strategist. I would still feel like an imposter syndrome. In fact, if I don't read it, then I feel like an imposter syndrome. So I like inundating myself with books and articles that deal with finance, even though it may be some boring things and numbers and whatever. But for me, it's like, well, I am driven and passionate to know more about what I do and the industry that I'm in, so that I can speak with confidence and self-efficacy. Do you like how I did that?
I do. I love she learned something and now she's talking about it. I love that. When I was first on the journey about 2 decades ago, diving into self-development and personal growth, I didn't realize how much my mother had already started instilling that in me when I was younger. She used to make us write positive quotes and we tape them all over the wall. She used to make us copy the dictionary if, we got in trouble. And she would also play Zig Ziglar. That was probably the first motivational speaker I'd ever heard. I mean, I was really young. I remember her putting in the tape, and it kind of stuck with me. His voice has stuck with me for a very long time. So my mom had already started introducing it because she was trying to change her own life. And then somehow those seeds got implanted in me, where when my life started going crazy in my 20s, my early 20s, and I started spiraling, when self-improvement started showing up for me again, I was like grabbing onto it for dear life. So for me, I do remember people making fun of me in the very early stages when I'd go, "Oh, I'm actually, what are you doing today? I'm going to go to Barnes Nobles. Well, what are you reading? Oh, I'm in the self-improvement aisle. And I was a little bit embarrassed about it. But then I realized this is saving my life. At that moment, it was saving my life. Because I had nothing and I was drowning. I mean, I was homeless. I was living out of my car. I shouldn't say I was homeless. I tried to change that mindset, but I was staying on friends' couch a lot. And I just kept thinking to myself, I can fix this. I can figure it out. Even back then, I kept saying to myself, you're capable, you're smart, you can do this. Like, if there's other people who started from nothing, who actually have been in worse situations than me, and they figured it out, there is a possibility I can make myself figure it out also. So it was constant drive. It was constant believing myself, even though at that time it was more negativity in my head than positivity. But I knew something had to change. And when I think back and I look at my life versus the people who then had made fun of me, I'm a lot further ahead. And I don't mean that in like a really like, let me put them down kind of way, because by no means I would ever want to put anybody down. But I'm saying I see now the choices I've made in every day in every week of my life. They've impacted my life in such a way that has taken me further than I ever imagined. So I am a big believer of self-improvement and self-growth, because I even know if I take a couple weeks off, if I like, have a week, even a week of not working out, right? My mental health suffers. Same with feeding my mind good things. If I go a week without getting some good words in my head, my brain will hijack me. Like my old self will come out. I don't even know how. Like I don't know everything, right? None of us do, unless you're like a brain scientist doctor or something. But you're just like, okay, it's just like putting food in your body. You got to feed yourself good foods to have to feel good every day. It's the same with words. Words are so freaking powerful.
So I love that you said everything. I love that you said that it's like food. You need this. We need this. One of the things I continue to tell my children, and I was just telling them this yesterday, is that everything starts in our mind. Everything. All our battles and all our struggles are inside our minds. And if you have a positive mindset, if you continue to read, and I did mention reading and really absorbing all of these personal developments and even affirmations that we do on a daily, this is going to help you be more resilient. And I think that's one of the things that we talked about earlier was being resilient. And you're right, it's like not going to the gym. And if you're 40 and above, go to the gym. You need to go to the gym, go work out. This is your friendly reminder, because if you want to live longer, if you want to have a healthy life and be strong in your 70s, in your 60s, in your 80s, you got to do it now. Got to do it now. That applies to reading as well. Reading for me is a lifelong journey. I love reading. I would love, okay, let me envision. I'm going to envision, or give you a vision of what I think is an amazing time to read. I would love to be sitting next to a fireplace with my cozy socks and my blanket and just hearing the fire just crackle in the background with a nice good book and my hot tea right or coffee right next to me and just read. And that would be ideal. Or I'd be reading in my garden, my beautiful rose tropical flower garden. I would love that as well. However, some of us don't have that time, and that's okay. That's why Audible was created. And we love Audible, so you can read it anywhere in the car when you're stuck, excuse me, stuck in traffic. So just find a book, cat, grab it, and just read it.
I was just going to mention that if you don't have time, I used to say that a lot. I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. Whoa, pause, stop. Look at the words you're saying. Look at what you're manifesting. I don't have time. Of course you don't have time. You're putting it out into the universe and you're putting so much on your plate because you don't have time. It's just a cycle of continued behavior. And I remember when I recognized that in myself and I started changing it. Okay. At first I was like, I really don't got time. But then I was like, I got time. I got time. As soon as I started changing that thought in my head, all of a sudden, it's like the waves parted, the seas parted, and I could see, oh, clearly in my schedule, I can make time. I can make time. So I used to spend a lot of time in my car, Traffic University. There you go. Listen to it there. Not saying that you can't listen to your jams, but take some time to maybe play a podcast, like January said, an Audible. On my lunches, I used to go to the park and I used to read a book or write. That was where I got in a lot of my writing. So I was trying to change my life by changing the words in my head. And how did I learn how to do that? By reading books that were telling me to change my mindset, to change the words that I was telling myself. So it's full circle.
I just love reading. And if you say I don't have time, how about changing it to I'll read one page. Okay, just one page. Small wins. Small wins. So even if you just read that one page, yay, you read something. 2 pages, 3 pages, however, a chapter, however way you have time for, then I would just include whatever it is that I have time for 1 page. I have time for 2 pages. And then go with that. And then sooner or later, you may be reading actually more.
And mothers out there, mompreneurs, you're taking care of your kids. Look, my mom had five of us, okay? Five kids, and she was a single mom. And when I tell you she popped in Zig Ziglar instead of playing music, look what that has done for me. Look what it has done for other kids out there who their parents have introduced self-improvement or personal development. My son's 25, and I can tell you, I wasn't I didn't consider myself a great or good mother back in my day, my early 20s. We all make mistakes, but the one thing I definitely know that I did right, and I'm so thankful, is I introduced him to self-improvement at a very young age. I did exactly what my mom did. I was trying to get him to listen to it, even though he didn't like it. I took him to Tony Robbins Unleashed the Power when he was 13. This kid, when I tell you, went to his apartment, he had self-improvement books sitting on his coffee table. I was shocked because I don't really tell him what to listen to or do in his life anymore. He's a young adult. So it's just fascinating me that he did what I've done. And it's that seed that you implant, right? So just a suggestion out there for parents, like introduce it to your kids when they're young. I know January you do. It's pretty amazing. But I like January. I can't get enough of personal development books. I love them so much. And I love going in bookstores and going to all the aisles, even like the travel aisles and the history aisles. And, I love books, period. But personal development and the business section, I am like, I could stay here forever.
So I just want to give your mom mad props. Your mom was above and beyond her time. So yay, mom. I wish I could have met you because you sound so amazing. And I love that you empowered your daughters. I love the relationship that you and your sisters have with each other because of your mom constantly just knitting you guys together. So anyway, just mad props to your mom. Moms out there, just like what Helen was saying, well, number one, read first. So you read first and then encourage your children to go read as well. It's important. With that said, Helen, we're going to wrap up unless you have any other last minute things that you'd like to share with everyone.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for listening to our podcast, Sexy Freedom Media Podcast. Thank you for sharing our show. Thank you for the feedback and the written reviews. If you do a written review, screenshot it, share it to your story, tag us, Sexy Freedom Media, Hell of a Journey, or January Liddell, or even Anchored Financial LLC. Tag us. We love that and we appreciate it so much. So yes, you can find me on Hell of a Journey with one L, Sexy Freedom Media. You can Google me or Google Nothing Sexier Than Freedom. Everything about Helen Edwards will pop up. And also check out our sister show, Your Morning Sauce, where you can get your episodes for the mornings under 6 minutes. It's just a little snack bite of inspiration and empowerment throughout your day. January, where can they find you?
You can find me at www.januaryliddell.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, January Liddell, Facebook, January Liddell, Anchored Financial LLC on both Facebook and Instagram, and Alina, the Honeymaker, on Facebook and Instagram. I wrote a children's book about financial literacy called Alina, the Super Saver. It is book one of the series, the Honeymaker series. Book two is actually finished. I wrote it. So we are just getting it in the editing and illustration process. So that is how you can find me. Just like Helen, you just write my name in Google and everything will pop up. So nice to see you. Nice to see you. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you listening. I would love to meet you. I hope one day Helen and I will get together in person and we'll have a Meet the Podcasters session and we get to meet you in person. You know what? Maybe that's how I should go to Wyoming is for Meet the Podcasters. I think that'd be awesome. In any case, thank you again, listeners. We appreciate you. Aloha.
Want to hear more?
Visit us at sexyfreedommedia.com.